It was just after 2 a.m. on March 29, 2019, in Columbia, South Carolina. Samantha Josephson, a 21-year-old senior at the University of South Carolina, had been out with friends in the city's Five Points Entertainment District, celebrating her upcoming graduation. Like many college students today, Samantha planned to take an Uber for a safe ride home at the end of the night. Little did she know, this seemingly routine choice would be the last she ever made. Security footage shows Samantha approaching a black Chevrolet Impala, likely mistaking it for her Uber ride. Within minutes of entering the car, her life would be tragically cut short by the man behind the wheel, 24-year-old Nathaniel Rowland. Rowland did not pick up Samantha by chance that night. He was actively seeking out young female victims by posing as an Uber driver. The horrifying truth is that Samantha Josephson was abducted, trapped, and murdered in a random act of horrific violence before her loved ones even realized she was missing. Her body was discarded in a remote area more than 60 miles away, left to be discovered by hunters 65 excruciating hours later. As the details of this monstrous crime came to light, the nation was left grappling not only with the senseless loss of a young life, but with disturbing questions about the safety of rideshare services like Uber and Lyft. Consumers rely on background checks when using these growing technologies, trusting that they offer some measure of security. How could this happen? And what measures need to be taken to prevent such horrifying predatory acts in the future? Samantha was a vibrant and driven young woman, a shining presence at the University of South Carolina. Little did anyone suspect that a seemingly ordinary night out would lead to a series of events that would shatter the lives of those who knew and loved her. Born to Seymour and Marcy Josephson in Princeton, New Jersey, Samantha grew up in Robbinsville. As a child, her dreams and aspirations took root, blossoming into a passion for political science and a desire to make a difference in the world. At the University of South Carolina, she pursued her studies with unwavering dedication. Her sights set on graduating in 2019 and attending the prestigious Drexel University School of Law, where she hoped to specialize in international law. Samantha's achievements were remarkable. She earned a full scholarship to Drexel and a partial scholarship to Rutgers, testament to her academic excellence. Her thirst for knowledge extended beyond the classroom as she studied abroad in Barcelona and visited Madrid and Paris, adopting new cultures and life experiences. With her radiant beauty and captivating smile, Samantha had a magnetic presence that drew people to her. Samantha had a boyfriend named Greg, and the couple was very close to each other. They were soulmates, their connection so profound that not a day went by without constant communication whenever it was possible. Their love transcended mere companionship. It was a partnership built on mutual dreams and aspirations. Samantha and Greg had carefully crafted plans for a future together, a future that would withstand the challenges of her upcoming law school journey. Greg, steadfast in his support, was determined to stand by her side, with intentions to move in with her and provide the emotional and practical support she would need as she pursued her legal studies. Everything seemed to be falling into place until that fateful night of March 29, 2019, when Samantha's world took an irreversible turn and her bright future was tragically brought to an end. On the evening of March 28th, Samantha had planned a night out with her roommate and friends in Columbia. Greg, her boyfriend, was supposed to join them, but circumstances kept him in his hometown. Undeterred, he encouraged Samantha to go out and have fun. Little did he know that this night would be their last conversation. Before going out, Samantha was gloomy after hearing of a family member's ailment and sought solace in the company of her friends, hoping to lift her spirits. The group visited a few bars before settling at the Bird Dog Bar, a popular hangout spot for students in the Five Points area in downtown Columbia. Throughout the night, Samantha remained in constant communication with Greg, her boyfriend, pleading with him to make the 2-hour drive to Columbia, craving his emotional support. However, the couple had already made plans to see each other the following weekend. Unaware of the tragedy that was about to unfold, Greg decided to stay put. Around 2 a.m., Samantha decided to head back to her apartment alone, a decision that would prove fateful. Relying on the familiar routine of using a rideshare service, she called an Uber, a common practice among her peers. Little did she know that fate had other plans, delivering her into the hands of a cold-blooded murderer. In her final conversation with Greg at around 2:04 a.m., Samantha assured him that she was headed home and had taken an Uber, a decision she made countless times in the past to safely navigate the city streets. Moments later, security cameras captured her approaching a car, only to notice it was not her intended ride. After retreating to the sidewalk, a black Chevrolet Impala, driven by a man later identified as Nathaniel David Rowland, pulled up. Assuming this was her ride, Samantha bid farewell to Greg and hopped into the back seat, unaware of the horror that awaited her. Within moments, the Impala sped off into the night, and the Uber that Samantha had ordered arrived at the pickup location, only to find its intended passenger gone. From that point on, only Samantha and her captor knew the truth. She had unwittingly entered the wrong car, a mistake that would seal her tragic fate. CCTV footage later revealed that the black Chevrolet Impala had circled the area numerous times, indicating a calculated and predatory approach. Rowland, well aware of the gatherings of college students in 5 Points after the bars closed, knew exactly what he was doing that night. Greg, Samantha's devoted boyfriend, tracked her movements using the Find My Friends app, ensuring she made it home safely. However, as he watched her location move in the opposite direction of her apartment, concern began to set in. Initially, he dismissed the detour, assuming she might be visiting a friend's place. But when his texts and calls went unanswered, and her phone's location stopped sharing, a sense of dread washed over him. Hoping against hope that Samantha had simply misplaced her phone in the Uber, Greg contacted her friends and roommates, only to find that no one had heard from her or seen her return home. With a heavy heart, he tried to get some sleep, clinging to the hope that she would turn up in the morning. Sadly, that hope was shattered when Samantha remained missing the following day. Her roommates, deeply concerned, reported her disappearance, and Greg made the 2-hour drive to Columbia to assist in the search for his beloved girlfriend. Less than 24 hours after Samantha was last seen on the surveillance video, a group of turkey hunters made a gruesome discovery in a wooded area in New Zion, about 65 miles away from 5 Points. They had stumbled upon the lifeless body of a young woman, later confirmed to be Samantha Josephson. The autopsy revealed the horrific extent of the violence inflicted upon her. Samantha's body bore over 120 separate stab wounds, with injuries to her face, head, neck, hands, upper body, legs, and feet. Her fingernails were hacked to pieces, a testament to her desperate struggle to shield herself from the razor-sharp blade that relentlessly tore into her flesh. The autopsy report indicated that she had been stabbed with a double-bladed knife and then dragged to the woods, her body nearly drained of blood. Investigators swiftly obtained the surveillance footage from the bar, which revealed the chilling moment when Samantha unknowingly entered her killer's car. The footage showed the black Chevrolet Impala circling the block several times, suggesting that the driver was actively hunting for a potential victim. It became clear that Samantha had accidentally gotten into her killer's car, mistaking it for her Uber. The Uber she had called arrived shortly after, but upon finding no passenger, the driver canceled the trip and left, unaware of the tragedy that had unfolded. Investigators believe that Rowland had used child-proof locks to trap Samantha inside the vehicle, leaving her with no means of escape. With the descriptions of the car widely circulated in hopes of finding the perpetrator before he struck again, it didn't take long for a break in the case to emerge. The day after Samantha's body was discovered, officers on routine patrol spotted the black Chevrolet Impala cruising the very same area where she had been kidnapped. When they attempted to pull the car over, the driver, identified as 24-year-old Nathaniel David Rowland, a resident of New Zion, fled on foot. After a short chase, he was apprehended, and the investigation took a chilling turn. Inside Rowland's car, officers found a child's car seat in the back, surrounded by what appeared to be bloodstains, prompting them to call for backup and treat the vehicle as a potential crime scene. As homicide detectives combed through the car, they uncovered overwhelming evidence: copious amounts of blood on the passenger seat and in the trunk, a bloody footprint on one of the rear windows, and Samantha's cell phone lying on the floorboards. Further examination revealed that Roland had attempted to sell Samantha's phone to a pawn shop earlier that day, but had left it in the car when the pawn shop offered him a mere $1.25 for it. The detectives also found the child locks activated, confirming their suspicion that Roland had used this tactic to trap Samantha inside the vehicle. During his interrogation, Roland continuously denied any knowledge of Samantha's kidnapping and murder, even as the evidence mounted against him. However, a physical examination revealed traces of Samantha's DNA under his fingernails, a damning piece of evidence that contradicted his claims of innocence. Piecing together the terrifying details of Samantha's final moments, detectives speculated that she had been the victim of a blitz attack. The engaged child-proof locks led them to conclude that Roland had activated them as soon as Samantha entered the car, leaving her helpless and trapped. In a brutal and ferocious assault, Roland repeatedly stabbed Samantha with a double-bladed knife, her mangled fingernails, and numerous defensive wounds on her hands, a testament to her desperate struggle to survive. Caught unawares and defenseless against the vicious attack, Samantha could not have scratched her assailant, explaining the absence of Roland's DNA under her nails. After the heinous act, Roland drove to a secluded farmer's access road in New Zion, an area only a local would know, and discarded Samantha's body in the nearby woods. Returning home, Roland carried on with his day, nonchalantly posting on social media as if nothing had happened. His familiarity with the area where Samantha's remains were found, and the proximity of his residence to the crime scene, further implicated him as the killer. A glimpse into Roland's background revealed a disturbing pattern. He was a devout churchgoer who had attended South Carolina State University in 2017, though it was unclear if he had graduated or what he was doing for employment at the time of the murder. More alarmingly, Roland had a prior felony arrest in October 2018 for obtaining a signature or property under false pretenses. In a chilling incident, Roland and an accomplice had carjacked a woman, assaulting her and forcing her to drive to an ATM, where they stole her money. They then compelled her to drive home, robbing her of additional belongings, including a PlayStation 4. While Roland was never convicted of robbing the woman, he did sell some of her stolen possessions, including the PlayStation 4. When detectives obtained a search warrant for Roland's girlfriend's apartment in New Zion, where he lived, the evidence against him grew even more damning. In the trash bins behind the apartment, they found a sock and bandana, allegedly belonging to Roland, heavily stained with Samantha's blood. Inside the apartment, they uncovered a white sheet with blood stains, a roll of duct tape, bleach wipes with traces of blood, and a two-bladed knife that appeared to have blood on it. Subsequent tests confirmed that the blood found on the knife, sheets, bleach wipes, and in the car matched Samantha Josephson's DNA. With the overwhelming evidence against him mounting rapidly, Roland was initially charged with possessing a weapon during a violent crime, the kidnapping, and the murder of Samantha Josephson. The trial that followed was a grueling ordeal for Samantha's family as Nathaniel Roland pleaded not guilty, maintaining his claims of innocence despite the mountain of evidence against him. When the trial began in the summer of 2021, Roland's defense team argued that their client was an innocent man, basing their defense largely on the fact that his DNA had not been found on the alleged victim. However, prosecutors countered these claims with the undeniable weight of the evidence they had amassed. They presented the CCTV footage showing Roland's car picking up Samantha in 5 points and driving away. The pools of her blood found in his vehicle, her bloody footprint on the back window, allegations that he had tried to use her bank card at an ATM after disposing of her body, cell phone trackers placing their devices in the same location at the time of the murder, and the fact that he lived near where her remains were discovered. Additionally, a handwriting expert was brought in to compare Roland's writing to a chilling list found in his home, which read duct tape, tape her whole body, gloves, all black, flip phone, gasoline, matches. The expert testified that it was highly likely Roland had written the list, suggesting a premeditated and calculated plan. The prosecution called 31 witnesses to testify, including someone who had seen Roland cleaning the murder weapon, the pawn shop owner to whom he had tried to sell Samantha's cell phone, and his ex-girlfriend who claimed that her daughter had blood on her shoe after being in Roland's car after the murder. Roland, on the other hand, called no witnesses, and none of his family members testified on his behalf. Despite maintaining his innocence and pleading with the judge, it took the jury only an hour to deliver a guilty verdict. Nathaniel Rowland was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, a just punishment for his despicable actions, but little solace for the Josephson family, who had lost their beloved Samantha in the most tragic of circumstances. In the wake of Samantha's murder, her parents, Seymour and Marcy Josephson, took it upon themselves to ensure that no one else would suffer the same fate as their daughter. With this goal in mind, they started the What's My Name Foundation, which encourages people of all ages who use rideshare services to ask the driver to identify them by name before entering a stranger's vehicle. The Josephsons also promoted a safety protocol they called SAMS, which stands for Stop, Ask, Match, and Inform. This protocol encourages rideshare users to be vigilant and take proactive steps to ensure their safety. In the wake of Samantha's murder, the rideshare industry took steps to enhance the safety of both drivers and passengers. One such measure was the introduction of a personalized 4-digit code, allowing riders to confirm through the app that they were entering the correct vehicle. Samantha Lee Josephson's tragic death left a profound impact on her family, friends, and the community she had touched. The grief they endure is immeasurable, a reflection of the bright light Samantha was in their lives. Her story serves as a powerful reminder that tragedy can strike without warning, and her memory should inspire us to stay vigilant, care for one another, and work together to build a world where safety and compassion are prioritized. As we remember Samantha's life and the senseless events that led to her death, we are reminded of life's fragility and the need to cherish every moment. Her story is a call to action, urging us to be more aware of the dangers that can lurk in the everyday and to take proactive steps to protect ourselves and those we care about. While the pain of Samantha's loss will never fully subside, her legacy endures through her family's efforts and the initiatives they have led to promote safety and awareness. Donald and Violet Dawson were the picture-perfect couple in Riverview. 5 years ago, they moved into their elegant 2-story home on Maple Street and quickly became well-known in the close-knit community. Donald's charm and quick wit made him a favorite at neighborhood gatherings, while Violet's warm smile and artistic talents won her the affection of everyone she met. Together, they hosted barbecues, attended charity events, and were often seen jogging together in the mornings. They embodied the image of marital bliss, with Donald thriving in his career as a financial analyst. He had a sharp eye for investments and was quickly climbing the corporate ladder. His colleagues admired his work ethic and intellect, often seeking his advice on financial matters. Violet, on the other hand, ran a successful freelance graphic design business from home. Her work was in high demand, and she had a loyal client base that appreciated her creativity and attention to detail. Their social circle was filled with other young professionals and couples who frequently admired their relationship. They appeared to complement each other perfectly. Donald was the ambitious, outgoing partner, while Violet offered a nurturing and supportive presence. They didn't have children, but they doted on their golden retriever, Max, treating him as their own child. To anyone observing from the outside, Donald and Violet seemed to have it all. But as the months passed into years, subtle cracks began to form in their seemingly perfect life. The first signs of trouble were the minor arguments over mundane household matters. Violet would complain about Donald leaving his clothes on the floor or not doing his share of the chores. Donald, in turn, would criticize Violet for her spending habits or the way she managed her time. These disagreements were brushed off as normal marital spats, but they hinted at deeper issues lurking beneath the surface. Their friends noticed the change, but didn't think much of it. After all, every couple had their moments of discord. However, those who spent more time with the Dawsons sensed a growing tension. Violet's laughter seemed more forced, and Donald's affectionate gestures appeared increasingly performative. Yet in public, they maintained their image of the perfect couple, never letting their private conflicts spill into their social life. Despite these early signs, Donald and Violet continued to present a united front. They celebrated anniversaries with lavish dinners and weekend getaways, posted loving messages on social media, and attended couples therapy sessions to work on their issues. But behind closed doors, the fights grew more frequent and intense, setting the stage for the dark and twisted events that would ultimately lead to tragedy. As the months went by, the arguments between Donald and Violet became more frequent and intense. The issues that once seemed trivial now escalated into full-blown fights. Donald's controlling behavior began to surface, and Violet's frustration grew with each passing day. The idyllic image of their marriage was slowly disintegrating, revealing a toxic dynamic that neither of them could escape. Donald's control over Violet extended beyond the household chores. He began dictating how she should dress, whom she could meet, and even how she should spend her free time. Violet, once an independent and confident woman, found herself constantly walking on eggshells trying to avoid Donald's wrath. She started to withdraw from her friends, making excuses for not attending social events or meeting for coffee. Her friends noticed the change, but were unsure how to approach the subject. One evening, during a dinner party at their home, the tension between Donald and Violet was palpable. Violet accidentally spilled wine on the tablecloth, and Donald's reaction was swift and harsh. He berated her in front of their guests, his face contorted with anger. The room fell silent. The awkwardness thickened the air. Violet apologized meekly, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Their friends exchanged uneasy glances, but tried to carry on with the evening, not wanting to exacerbate the situation. After the guests left, Donald continued his tirade. Violet tried to defend herself, but her words only seemed to fuel his anger. It was during these moments that Violet glimpsed the darker side of Donald, a side that was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. The man she had once admired and loved was now a source of fear and anxiety. Violet confided in her sister, Rachel, about the growing issues in her marriage. Rachel was shocked to hear about Donald's behavior, as he had always been charming and respectful around her. She urged Violet to consider leaving him, but Violet was hesitant. She still loved Donald and hoped that their issues could be resolved through therapy and open communication. Donald, on the other hand, dismissed the idea of therapy. He believed that Violet was overreacting and that their problems were normal marital issues. He continued to exert control over every aspect of Violet's life, from her work to her friendships. Violet felt increasingly isolated and trapped, her once vibrant personality dimming under the weight of Donald's dominance. The unraveling of Donald and Violet's marriage was rooted in their pasts, hidden traumas and manipulative tendencies that had remained buried until now. Donald's need for control stemmed from his childhood, where he grew up in a household dominated by his tyrannical father. Witnessing his mother's submissiveness and his father's oppressive behavior, Donald internalized the notion that control was synonymous with love and respect. Violet's past was marked by a different kind of trauma. She had been in an abusive relationship during her college years, which left her with deep emotional scars. She had worked hard to rebuild her life, seeking therapy and finding solace in her career. Meeting Donald had seemed like a fresh start, a chance to leave her painful past behind. But as the years went by, the echoes of her past trauma resurfaced, exacerbated by Donald's controlling behavior. Their marriage, which had once seemed like a partnership of equals, transformed into a battleground of wills. Donald's manipulative tendencies became more pronounced, and Violet's hidden traumas were exploited. Donald would use Violet's past against her, belittling her experiences and making her feel unworthy of love and respect. He manipulated her emotions, alternating between affectionate gestures and harsh criticisms, leaving Violet constantly second-guessing herself. Violet's attempts to seek help from friends or family were often thwarted by Donald's interference. He would charm her friends, making them believe that Violet was exaggerating or being overly sensitive. He isolated her from those who could offer support, ensuring that she remained dependent on him. Violet's cries for help were met with skepticism as Donald's outward charm and charisma masked his true nature. The twisted game of manipulation and control escalated over time. Donald would gaslight Violet, making her doubt her own perceptions and memories. He would hide her belongings, then accuse her of being forgetful. He would criticize her appearance and decisions, undermining her confidence. Violet, caught in this web of psychological abuse, felt her sense of reality slipping away. Despite the escalating abuse, Violet clung to the hope that things could change. She believed that if she just tried harder, if she just loved Donald enough, things would go back to the way they were. She blamed herself for the growing tension. Convinced that she was the problem, Donald reinforced this belief, using it to tighten his grip on her. The turning point in Donald and Violet's tumultuous relationship came one night during an argument that escalated beyond verbal altercations. It started as a typical disagreement over household chores, but the tension quickly mounted. Donald's face twisted with anger as he accused Violet of being lazy and ungrateful. Violet, her patience worn thin, snapped back, telling Donald that she was tired of his constant criticism and control. The argument spiraled out of control, with both of them shouting and hurling accusations. Donald's anger boiled over, and for the first time, he struck Violet. The force of the blow sent her reeling, her cheeks stinging from the impact. The room fell silent, the reality of what had just happened sinking in. Donald, momentarily stunned by his own actions, quickly regained his composure and began to apologize profusely. He promised it would never happen again, blaming the stress from work and the pressures of life. Violet, shocked and hurt, didn't know how to respond. She had never imagined that their arguments would turn physical. Despite her fear, a part of her still clung to the hope that Donald could change. She accepted his apology, convincing herself that it was a one-time incident, an unfortunate outburst that wouldn't be repeated. But the physical abuse didn't stop. Over the following weeks, Donald's outburst became more frequent and violent. Violet tried to hide the bruises, making excuses for her injuries when friends or colleagues asked. She became adept at covering up the signs of abuse, using makeup to mask the bruises and long sleeves to hide the marks. Her once vibrant spirit was replaced by a shadow of her former self, her eyes reflecting a deep-seated fear and sadness. In a desperate attempt to break free from the cycle of abuse, Violet confided in her closest friend, Kate. She told Kate about the physical violence and Donald's controlling behavior, hoping that sharing her secret would give her the strength to leave. Kate was horrified and immediately offered her support, urging Violet to contact a domestic violence hotline and seek help. Violet took Kate's advice and called the hotline. Speaking to a counselor who provided her with resources and a safety plan, she started to make preparations to leave, gathering important documents and saving money in a hidden account. Violet felt a glimmer of hope, believing that she could escape the nightmare her life had become. However, Donald's control over Violet was stronger than she anticipated. He grew suspicious of her actions. Noticing the small changes in her behavior and the secretive nature of her movements, his paranoia intensified, and he began to monitor her closely, checking her phone and following her when she left the house. Violet's attempts to break free were thwarted at every turn, as Donald tightened his grip on her life. The breaking point came when Violet tried to leave one night, only to be caught by Donald as she was sneaking out of the house with a suitcase. Enraged, Donald dragged her back inside, accusing her of betrayal and threatening her with dire consequences if she ever tried to leave again. Violet, terrified and defeated, realized that escaping Donald's control was more difficult than she had ever imagined. In the days that followed, Donald's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He installed surveillance cameras in the house, monitored Violet's every move, and cut off her access to the outside world. Violet felt like a prisoner in her own home, her every action scrutinized and controlled. The glimmer of hope that had once sustained her was extinguished, replaced by a sense of despair and resignation. The twisted game of manipulation and control had reached a dangerous new level, with Donald's paranoia and violence threatening to consume them both. Despite the overwhelming fear and isolation, Violet continued to hold on to a sliver of hope. She documented the abuse in a hidden journal, detailing each incident with meticulous care. One night, after a particularly violent argument, Violet decided she couldn't take it anymore. The fight had started over a minor issue, Donald accusing her of not cooking dinner to his liking, but it quickly escalated. Donald's rage was uncontrollable, and he beat Violet until she was barely conscious. As she lay on the floor battered and bleeding, Violet made a silent vow to escape no matter the cost. Over the next few days, Violet meticulously planned her escape. She reached out to Kate through a coded message, arranging a time and place to meet. Kate, understanding the gravity of the situation, agreed to help without hesitation. On the night of their planned escape, Violet waited until Donald was asleep before making her move. She quietly gathered her pre-packed bag and slipped out of the house. Her heart pounded in her chest as she made her way to the meeting spot, every shadow and sound amplifying her fear. Kate was waiting at the designated spot, her car idling and ready to go. Violet climbed into the passenger seat, her hands shaking as she clutched her bag. Kate didn't waste any time, driving away from the house as quickly as possible. The sense of relief Violet felt was overwhelming, but it was quickly tempered by the realization that her freedom was still fragile. They drove to a nearby town where Kate had arranged for Violet to stay at a women's shelter. The shelter provided a safe haven, a place where Violet could begin to rebuild her life without fear of Donald's retribution. The staff at the shelter were supportive and understanding, helping Violet navigate the legal process of obtaining a restraining order and pressing charges against Donald. For the first time in years, Violet felt a glimmer of hope. She was surrounded by people who believed her, who validated her experiences, and provided her with the support she desperately needed. The journey to recovery was daunting, but Violet was determined to reclaim her life and break free from the cycle of abuse. However, Donald was not willing to let go so easily. When he discovered Violet's absence, his rage knew no bounds. He used every resource at his disposal to track her down, refusing to accept that she had escaped his control. The twisted game of manipulation and control had reached its final deadly stage, setting the stage for a confrontation that would have tragic consequences. Violet had been staying at the women's shelter for a few weeks, slowly beginning to heal and regain her sense of self. The staff and other residents provided a supportive community, helping her navigate the complexities of her situation. She had obtained a restraining order against Donald, and the shelter had taken measures to ensure her safety. However, Donald's obsession with Violet only grew stronger in her absence. He scoured social media to track her down. His need to control her had reached a dangerous level, driven by a toxic mix of anger, jealousy, and possessiveness. Donald's paranoia and determination to reclaim Violet culminated in a meticulously planned confrontation. On the night of June 27th, Donald finally discovered Violet's location. He had been stalking the shelter for days, watching and waiting for the right moment. When he saw Violet leave the shelter to run an errand, he followed her careful to remain undetected. Violet was unaware of his presence, her mind occupied with thoughts of her new life and the steps she needed to take to move forward. As Violet returned to the shelter, she felt a strange unease, a sense that something was not right. She quickened her pace, her heart racing as she approached the shelter's entrance. Before she could reach the door, Donald appeared, blocking her path. The look in his eyes was a chilling combination of rage and determination. Donald's voice was low and menacing as he demanded that Violet come with him. Violet tried to remain calm, her voice shaking as she told him to leave and that she had a restraining order against him. But Donald was beyond reason. He grabbed her arm, his grip tight and painful, and started dragging her towards his car. Violet struggled, screaming for help, but the street was deserted and her cries went unanswered. In a desperate bid to break free, Violet managed to pull out her phone and dial 911. The call connected, but before she could speak, Donald slapped the phone out of her hand, sending it crashing to the ground. Violet's panic intensified as she realized the severity of the situation. Donald's anger was palpable, his grip on her arm unrelenting. In a final desperate attempt to escape, Violet kicked Donald and tried to run, but Donald was faster and stronger. He caught up to her, and in a fit of rage began to beat her mercilessly. Violet's cries for help echoed through the empty street, but no one came to her aid. Donald's fury was uncontrollable, and he didn't stop until Violet lay motionless on the ground. As the reality of what he had done sank in, Donald's rage gave way to panic. He looked around. Realizing that the commotion could attract attention, he quickly dragged Violet's body to his car, his mind racing as he tried to think of a plan. He knew he needed to get rid of the evidence and cover his tracks. Donald drove to a remote area outside of town, a place he knew would be deserted at this hour. He put his hand on her neck. There was no pulse. He carried her into the woods, his heart pounding as he dug a shallow grave. He placed her body in the grave, covering it with dirt and debris. Donald's hands shook as he worked, the reality of his actions hitting him with full force. He knew there was no turning back. After burying Violet, Donald returned to his car, his mind racing with thoughts of how to cover his tracks. He disposed of her belongings, including her phone, and cleaned the car meticulously, trying to eliminate any traces of evidence. Donald knew that the police would come looking for him, but he was confident that he could outsmart them. Back at the shelter, the staff discovered Violet's absence and the signs of a struggle near the entrance. They immediately called the police, reporting her missing and providing details of her situation. The police launched an investigation, quickly identifying Donald as the prime suspect. The investigation was swift and thorough. Donald's history of abuse, the restraining order, and his known obsession with Violet made him the obvious suspect. The police tracked his movements, interviewed witnesses, and gathered evidence. It didn't take long for them to piece together the events of that fateful night. Friends and family were interviewed, providing crucial insights into the dynamics of Donald and Violet's relationship. Kate, Violet's closest friend, recounted the numerous times Violet had confided in her about the abuse. She disclosed the details of Violet's escape plan and their coded messages, exposing the depth of Violet's fear and desperation. Kate's testimony revealed a stark contrast between the public image of the Dawsons and the grim truth behind closed doors. Violet's sister, Rachel, spoke of the early warning signs she had observed in their marriage. She described Donald's controlling behavior and the gradual way Violet was isolated from her family. Rachel's account of Violet's past trauma and her efforts to rebuild her life added further insight into the abuse she had endured. During the interrogation, Donald initially tried to deny any wrongdoing, but the weight of the evidence proved too much. His story unraveled under questioning, and he ultimately confessed to the murder. He recounted the events of that night with chilling precision, his voice lacking any remorse or empathy. Donald's confession aligned with the police's findings, solidifying the case against him. The community of Riverview was stunned by the revelations. The couple they had once admired and envied had been concealing a dark and twisted reality. The news of Violet's murder, along with the details of the abuse she had suffered, sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. The transformation of Donald and Violet's relationship from a seemingly perfect marriage to a tragic and violent end served as a harsh reminder of the dangers of domestic abuse. After several days of testimony and deliberation, the jury delivered a guilty verdict. Donald was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His fate was sealed, and the community of Riverview could begin its healing process. The murder of Violet Dawson was a heartbreaking tragedy that left a lasting impact on the town. The once admired couple, whose public life had been envied by many, was revealed to have been hiding a dark and twisted truth. On Tuesday, September 13, 2005, 22-year-old Claire Burnell was nearing the end of her workday. Originally from Tunbridge Wells, Kent, Claire had moved to Dulwich, London, in 2003 to pursue her dream job. She had completed beauty consultancy and theater makeup courses in Kent and secured a position at a beauty counter in Harvey Nichols, Knightsbridge, London. As a skincare expert, Claire was passionate about her work and loved what she did. Claire had always wanted to work in a large department store, and she felt the La Prairie beauty counter at Harvey Nichols was the perfect fit. It was a high-end skincare brand, and Claire knew she could provide exceptional care for their customers. Eager to work with the brand, she wrote directly to the company, explaining why she admired their products, and was invited for an interview. She traveled to London from Kent with her brother for the interview, having thoroughly prepared in advance. And on the way from Kent to London, she practiced what she would say and took her portfolio of her work from the courses she had completed with her. She got the job and moved to London and into a flat with 2 flatmates. That day, September 13th at 7:50 p.m., Claire was looking forward to finishing for the day. As the store was due to close at 8 p.m., there were only a few people around and it was quiet. Claire and her colleague were tidying up the counter. In a matter of seconds, Claire's colleague saw a shadow and then a man behind Claire. The man shot Claire in the back of the head and she fell to the ground. He then shot her 3 times in the face. The man then shot himself. It was a shocking and violent incident that had left 2 people dead. The man had entered via a back door and walked directly over to Claire, who had her back to him at the beauty counter where she was standing on the shop floor of a prestigious London store, and shot her dead in front of customers and her colleagues. Police informed Claire's mother, Patricia Bernal, what had happened to her daughter, and she immediately knew who was responsible: Michael Peck. The man who shot Claire was 30-year-old Michael Peck. Michael was a former soldier from Slovakia, and after working at the American Embassy in Bratislava, he moved to London in 2003 as part of a student visa. While Michael was in London, Slovakia joined the EU, and that meant that he had freedom of movement and could stay and work there. Michael got a job as a security guard in Harvey Nichols in 2004. That was where he met Claire. He asked her out in January 2005, and they went on a total of 3 dates over a 3-week period. When Claire first met Michael, she was flattered by the attention. He was in the middle of a divorce, his wife was in Slovakia, and Claire believed they were just dating and having fun. The relationship was nothing serious. But while Claire saw it as a bit of fun, Michael became possessed and obsessed with Claire after just 1 date. He even told her that he loved her. Claire was taken aback and didn't know how to respond. During the 3-week period, Claire began to feel unconformable about how full-on jealous and controlling Michael was. He wanted her to only spend time with him and did not want her to meet up with friends or even go home to visit her family. Claire felt increasingly concerned by his behavior and ended the relationship in February 2005. She made the decision when Michael returned to London from a trip home to Slovakia and told Claire that she had to meet him at the airport. She did, and they went back to her flat in Dulwich, and he tried to make her agree to let him spend the night there. Claire said no, and he refused to leave. He told her his case was too heavy to drag across London. Michael eventually left when she agreed to walk to the train station with him. But when he refused to get on the train, that was the final straw for Claire. She told Michael that the relationship was over. Claire went back to her flat and Michael followed her. She asked him to leave her alone, but he stayed outside her flat for some 2 hours. When Claire's flatmate asked him to leave, he was abusive and shouted at her. While he was outside Claire's flat, he called her around 20 times. She did not answer any of his calls. The next day, Michael went to Claire's flat again and brought a bunch of flowers with him. He again waited outside, but Claire did not speak to him and she did not accept the flowers. As Claire and Michael worked at the same store, she knew she would see him regularly. But Michael went out of his way to see Claire as much as possible. He followed her around the store, and she saw him staring directly at her a number of times. Michael also used the mirrors in the store to look at her and see what she was doing. He went to her counter multiple times to ask her to take him back, and he repeatedly told her that he loved her and knew she loved him. Michael asked other people who worked in the store to ask Claire to speak to him. She did. Claire asked him to stop, but that seemed to only escalate matters. As she was leaving the store one day, he grabbed her and told her he loved her. He was shouting and said that he knew she loved him too. Claire told him that she didn't love him, and he shouted, "Yes, you do, you stupid little girl." Michael sent Claire around 50 text messages every day. He followed her to work, got the same train as her and followed her home and stayed outside her flat for hours at a time. When Claire continued to ignore him, his text messages changed from "we were meant to be together" to "I will kill myself if we can't be together, and if I can't have you, no one will." Apart from feeling terrified, Claire's health began to deteriorate. There was no escape from Michael. He was at the train station where she got the train, outside her flat, and at her place of work. She couldn't sleep and got several eye infections as a result. She no longer loved her work and dreaded going in. She couldn't concentrate and was late, but she was reluctant to report Michael. She just wanted him to leave her alone. Her mother, Patricia, said she was embarrassed. She felt that by reporting it, because he hadn't physically assaulted her, she would be wasting police time. One day, on the March 30th, 2005, when Claire was on her way home from work, Claire saw Michael on the underground platform at the train station. To try to avoid him, Claire ran down the platform and jumped on the train. But Michael saw her and got on the same carriage as her on the same train. As soon as the train stopped, Claire got off and ran. But Michael caught her and knocked her over. It was too much for Claire. She told Michael that if he did not stop, that she would have no option but to report him. He said, "If you report me, I will kill you." Claire got on to another train, and Michael banged the windows and shouted at her. Claire was so frightened by the threat Michael made that she reported Michael to the head of security at Harvey Nichols. They looked at the cameras inside the store and saw the harassment that Claire told them about. Michael was moved to a different floor, but that did not stop him. He was suspended, and the store advised Claire to report the matter to the police. Claire reported Michael to the police. At the disciplinary hearing at Harvey Nichols in relation to Michael's suspension, it emerged that Michael asked one of Claire's colleagues what the maximum sentence was for murder in the UK. Claire was extremely concerned at that point. Michael was sacked and police arrested him. Michael was released on bail. As part as his bail conditions, he could not make contact with Claire. But even with the threat of returning to prison, Michael was not prepared to stop. And he went to Claire's flat again multiple times. So much so that she moved and she changed her phone number. In a short space of time, a matter of days, Michael found out where Claire lived, and she found him waiting for her outside her new flat. Claire reported him to police, and he was arrested and charged with threatening to kill. Claire tried to move on with her life and went on holiday for her birthday in July 2005 with her mother. They had a great time in Florence. While awaiting trial, Michael was released on bail and went to Slovakia and spent time there at a firing range. He applied for a gun license and took part in the gun training and exams. When he passed, he bought a handgun and registered it with the police in Slovakia. Michael took a coach back to the UK with the handgun hidden inside his luggage. He wasn't searched. Nobody noticed anything suspicious, and Claire had not been informed that Michael had been released on bail. Nobody had taken Michael's passport from him, which meant he was essentially free to travel wherever he wanted to. He was in court again just 6 weeks later, and he pleaded guilty to harassment on the advice of his lawyer. His lawyer informed him that the case against him was strong. The charges relating to threatening to kill were dropped. After he pleaded guilty to the harassment charge, Michael was released on bail to allow for the preparation of reports for court for his sentencing hearing. Claire told Patricia, "Mom, thank God it's over. Now finally people will believe me and I can get on with my life." Claire believed at that point her ordeal was over. It was just a matter of time until he would be sentenced. But just 2 weeks after that last court appearance, on September 13th, Michael walked into Harvey Nichols and shot Claire dead. Michael was on high on cocaine when he killed Claire. After he shot her a total of 4 times, he fired a shot into the ceiling and then shot himself. After Claire's murder, questions were asked as to why Claire wasn't protected more. It was established at the inquest that the police officer assigned to Claire's case was young and had a heavy workload. The training involved for dealing with domestic violence incidents took 1 day only. It was determined the police officer failed to fill out a report in relation to Michael's threat level. But the coroner at the inquest determined that the police could not have known that Claire would be Morderita. Even if the form had been filled out, the coroner believed he would have been deemed low risk due to the fact he had no previous convictions. The palace arrested Measle when Claire reported him. But the issue really seemed to be, like we see so often, that the accused is let out on bail. It is normally during this period, the bail period, when the victim is most at risk. There is no doubt the system let down Claire. He had twice been arrested for harassment and threatening to kill her, but was allowed out on bail. And during this period, he traveled to Slovakia freely, where he bought a Luger gun, practiced shooting, and undoubtedly devised a plan in his mind to end Claire's life. The coroner determined that Claire had been unlawfully killed, but that her death could not have been anticipated. Patricia and families of other victims set up protection against stalking. They asked the Prime Minister at the time, who was David Cameron, to pass a new law which outlawed stalking and would make stalking a stand-alone offense. He agreed. In 2012, the new law was passed. David Cameron said, "Stalking is an abhorrent crime. It makes life a living hell for victims, breaking up relationships, forcing the victims to move house, making them feel they are being watched 24 hours a day. This is why we are explicitly criminalizing stalking, to make sure that justice is done, protect the victims, and show beyond doubt that stalking is a crime." Her mother, from Groombridge, East Sussex, has previously said it was beyond belief that Peck had been released on bail after threatening to kill her daughter. Peck had been on bail, awaiting sentence for harassment. Police, magistrates, and prosecutors were criticized for not doing enough in the months before the attack. A coroner ruled in 2007 that her murder could not have been reasonably foreseen, but he criticized police for wasting time with form filling to provide a scapegoat. Tricia Bernal was instrumental in getting a change in the law to recognize stalking as a crime. However, despite the previous threats and in spite of the fact that a restraining order was in place, the system was unable to adequately protect Claire. The detail that stands out most is how Peck had planned the murder. He had purchased weapons and ammunition in Belgium, indicating that he had taken premeditated action and intended to avoid detection. Peck's ability to smuggle the weapons into the United Kingdom raises questions about the control of weapon movement across borders. Claire's situation also highlights challenges in communication and response by the police and justice system. In spite of Claire's numerous reports and requests for assistance, she did not receive adequate protection, a problem that is unfortunately not unique to victims of domestic abuse and harassment. Following this tragic incident, the parents of Claire and the general public have called for stricter legislation and improved practices to protect victims of domestic abuse. This incident has served as a catalyst for discussions and changes in how stalking and cases of domestic violence are handled in the United Kingdom. David Cameron addressed the introduction of new anti-stalking laws that were passed in response to the Claire Bernal case and other similar incidents. Stalking was officially recognized as a specific criminal offense, a decision Cameron announced. This move aims to prevent tragedies like the murder of Claire Bernal, who was shot by her ex-boyfriend while at work. Emphasizing the seriousness of stalking and the necessity of protecting victims, Cameron highlighted the importance of these laws in ensuring safety and preventing future tragedies. Claire Bernal's friend, Adam Ward, shared his grief on the program, stating, "She would have been dead before she hit the floor, and I hope she had no idea what was going on." Meanwhile, in Kent, Tricia was out celebrating a birthday with friends. She returned home around midnight and went to bed, unaware of her daughter's fate. At about 2:45 a.m., she was awakened by a loud knock on the door. Two police officers stood there, and one of them said, "It's Claire," Tricia recalled. "I knew by their faces she'd gone." The family liaison officer confirmed she was shot. Tricia immediately suspected it was her daughter's ex, Pesh, who had done it. Claire's mother explained that while Claire had struggled with her health and sleep, she had initially been reluctant to report the issues, feeling embarrassed. Reports also indicated that Peck had threatened to kill her if she reported him, but her mother said they never believed he would follow through. Following her daughter's murder, Claire Bernal's mother, Patricia Bernal, became a prominent advocate in the fight against domestic violence and stalking. She channeled her personal heartbreak into a campaign for change, working to raise awareness about domestic violence and harassment. After Claire's death, Patricia not only pushed for stricter laws and better protection for victims, but also emphasized the need for enhanced police training to better recognize and handle stalking and domestic violence cases. She advocated for specific training programs for law enforcement officers and worked with lawmakers to introduce stronger measures, including injunctions to prevent harassers from approaching their victims. Maggie Lewin, a warm-hearted and welcoming 45-year-old housewife, took great pride in her role as a mother to her two children, Mocha and Tucker. Married to local dentist Dr. Dean Lewin, Maggie dedicated herself to maintaining a perfect household. However, beneath her cheerful and devoted exterior, Maggie longed for excitement and fulfillment beyond the everyday responsibilities of home life. Seeking a break from the monotony of suburban life in Elgin, Illinois, she found solace in the local women's book club. Known as the Literary Ladies, the book club was a close-knit group of women who met every Tuesday evening at each other's homes. Under the leadership of the charismatic and enigmatic Linda Bernardino Scalco, the club offered an escape from the routine of their suburban existence. The women bonded over discussions that ranged from classic literature to contemporary bestsellers, with a particular love for the novels of Joyce Lehman. They enjoyed sharing their thoughts and opinions, often over steaming cups of coffee and plates of homemade sugar cookies. Maggie, with her insatiable thirst for intellectual adventure, quickly became an active and engaged member of the group. She relished the stimulating conversations, the camaraderie, and the chance to step outside her usual role as a wife and mother, embracing the opportunity for personal growth and connection. The club became her sanctuary, a place where she could explore her hidden desires and dreams. Little did Maggie know that her involvement with the literary ladies would lead her down a dark and treacherous path. As the days grew colder in January 1993, a sinister plot began to unfold within the confines of the book club. Secrets, jealousy, and betrayal simmered beneath the surface, threatening to shatter the illusion of harmony. On a fateful day, January 23, 1993, with the weather bleak and cold, Maggie's life came to a tragic end. Her body was discovered in her own bathroom, brutally beaten to death with a claw hammer. It was Karen Evans, Maggie's closest friend and next-door neighbor, who made the horrifying discovery. Karen, a petite woman with a heart-shaped face, auburn hair, and a heart of gold, had gone over to Maggie's house for their regular Saturday morning coffee and chat session. Little did she know that this visit would forever change her life. As Karen entered the house, she immediately noticed something was amiss. The air felt heavy with an unspoken tension. The usual warmth and laughter that filled the air during their weekly get-togethers were replaced by an eerie silence. Concerned, Karen called out for Maggie, but there was no response. She made her way towards the bathroom. As Karen made her way up the stairs, her heart pounding in her chest, she noticed a faint smell of iron in the air. The bathroom door stood ajar, casting an eerie glow onto the hallway. With trembling hands, she pushed open the door, and what she saw would haunt her forever. Maggie's lifeless body lay sprawled on the cold tile floor, her once vibrant eyes now vacant and lifeless. Blood stained the walls, and the claw hammer, the murder weapon, lay beside her. Upon opening the bathroom door, Karen's worst fears were realized. Karen's initial reaction was one of shock and disbelief. She couldn't comprehend the brutality of what she was witnessing. Panic surged through her veins as she frantically dialed 911, her voice trembling as she relayed the grisly scene to the dispatcher. News of the murder spread like wildfire through the tight-knit community of Elgin. The town was gripped with a sense of unease as neighbors locked their doors and whispered about the possibility of a killer lurking among them. On that fateful winter day of January 23, 1993, tragedy struck the quiet town of Elgin, Illinois. The murder of Maggie Lewin, a beloved housewife and mother, sent shock waves through the community, leaving everyone in disbelief. The police, led by Detective Carl Bledsoe, wasted no time in launching a thorough investigation into this heinous crime. Arriving promptly at the crime scene, the police were met with a chilling sight. The bathroom, once a place of tranquility and cleanliness, now bore the grim evidence of a brutal attack. Blood stains splattered across the walls, and floor told a story of violence and terror. It was clear that Maggie had been mercilessly beaten to death with a claw hammer, a weapon that had been turned against her in her own home. Detective Bledsoe and his team meticulously combed through every inch of the crime scene, leaving no stone unturned. They meticulously collected any potential evidence, ensuring that no detail went unnoticed. Fingerprints were carefully lifted, blood samples were taken, and any possible evidence was meticulously cataloged. As the investigation unfolded, the detectives began to piece together the last moments of Maggie's life. Interviews with friends and family revealed that she had been an active member of a local women's book club. Could there be a connection between her involvement in the club and her untimely demise? The detectives delved deeper into the lives of the book club members, scrutinizing their backgrounds and relationships. They discovered that tensions had been simmering beneath the surface, hidden behind the facade of friendship. Petty jealousies, secret affairs, and whispered rumors plagued the seemingly innocent lives of these women. The media, hungry for a sensational story, descended upon Elgin, amplifying the already palpable tension in the air. News outlets like the local newspaper, the Elgin Courier, and the television station, WGN-TV, covered the case extensively, eager to capture every twist and turn. The town, once known for its peaceful, boringly Midwestern charm, became a hub of speculation and intrigue. Days turned into weeks, and the investigation continued to unfold. Detective Bledsoe analyzed the evidence, sifting through countless leads and alibis. The pressure to solve this case weighed heavily on his shoulders as the community anxiously awaited justice for Maggie Lewin. Linda Bernardino Scalco, a 61-year-old local librarian and esteemed leader of the Women's Book Club, found herself at the center of suspicion in the shocking murder of Maggie Lewin. Known for her bookish exterior, sharp intellect, and extensive knowledge of literature, Linda had always presented herself as a respected member of the community. However, as the investigation unfolded, a hidden side to Linda's life began to emerge, casting doubt on her innocence. The Women's Book Club, once thought to be a gathering of literary enthusiasts, turned out to be far more than meets the eye. Behind closed doors, this seemingly innocent group transformed into a secret society of female sexual exploration, engaging in clandestine activities such as swinging and orgies that shocked the conservative and very Midwestern community of Elgin, Illinois. The members of the club, including Linda and Maggie, indulged in a world of forbidden sexual desires where erotic boundaries were pushed and inhibitions were cast aside. As the investigators delved deeper into Linda's background, they discovered a trail of secrets and hidden rendezvous. The evidence pointed to a complicated web of relationships and encounters that seemed inconceivable in the quiet suburban town. The police meticulously examined phone records, uncovering late-night calls and cryptic messages exchanged between Linda, Maggie, and the other members of the book club. The investigation revealed a complex network of desire and betrayal where passion and jealousy intertwined. The motive behind Maggie's brutal murder remained elusive, leaving investigators puzzled. Linda's demeanor during the interrogations only added to the enigma surrounding her. At times, Linda, who hid a passionate and deeply sexual nature, displayed flashes of anger, vehemently denying any involvement in the crime. Yet, in other moments, she exuded an eerie calmness, as if she held the key to a dark secret that could unravel the entire mystery. As Detective Carl Bledsoe and his team continued to piece together the puzzle, they found themselves entangled in a web of deceit and desire where nothing was as it seemed. With each new lead, the truth seemed to slip further away, leaving the investigators and the community desperate for answers. Karen Evans, a close friend and neighbor of Maggie Lewin, became the focus of the investigation as the second suspect in the murder case. Known for her friendly and cheerful demeanor, Karen appeared to be the epitome of suburban normalcy. However, behind closed doors, a darker side of Karen was revealed. During the course of the investigation, it was uncovered that Karen and Maggie had a sexual relationship within the Women's Book Club. While this revelation added a new layer of complexity to the case, it also shed light on a potential motive for the crime. Karen also admitted to feeling jealous of Maggie's sexual encounters with Linda Bernardino Scalco, the leader of the book/secret sex club. The police interrogated Karen extensively, carefully observing her reactions and demeanor. They sought to uncover the truth behind Maggie's murder and determine Karen's involvement, if any. In the interrogation room, Karen's emotions ranged from anger to sadness as she struggled to come to terms with her feelings of jealousy and betrayal. The investigators probed deeper, questioning Karen about her relationship with Maggie and the dynamics within the book club. As the interview progressed, Karen revealed that she had developed strong feelings for Maggie over time. She admitted to feeling a sense of possessiveness and resentment towards Linda, who had also engaged in sexual activities with Maggie. Karen's jealousy had intensified, leading to a growing tension between the three women. The investigators delved into Karen's background, seeking any possible connections to the crime. They discovered that Karen had a history of emotional instability and had previously sought therapy for her jealousy issues. This revelation added another dimension to the case, as the police considered the possibility of Karen's emotions spiraling out of control. Furthermore, the investigators uncovered evidence that Karen had been researching ways to deal with jealousy and anger. They found books and articles on self-help, anger management, and relationships in her possession. These findings raised suspicions about Karen's state of mind and her potential involvement in Maggie's murder. As the investigation continued, the police meticulously examined Karen's alibi and cross-referenced it with witness testimonies and physical evidence. They also analyzed Karen's phone records, seeking any communication that could link her to the crime. Every detail was scrutinized in their pursuit of the truth. The case of Maggie Lewin's murder had taken a complex turn, with Karen Evans emerging as a key figure in the investigation. The police were determined to uncover the truth behind Maggie's untimely demise and determine Karen's role in the shocking crime. The investigation into the murder of Maggie Lewin took an unexpected turn as new evidence emerged, providing a glimmer of hope for the dedicated team of detectives. On a frigid January day in 1993, the police made a breakthrough that could potentially crack the case wide open. The weather, a bone-chilling cold that gripped Elgin, Illinois, played a crucial role in this significant discovery. It was on January 27th, when the temperature plummeted to a freezing -10 degrees Fahrenheit, that a key piece of evidence was uncovered. Detective Carl Bledsoe and his team meticulously analyzed the data from various sources, including local meteorological records and eyewitness testimonies. It was during their investigation that they stumbled upon a witness who had been in close proximity to Maggie's house on the night of her murder. Howard Johnson, a resident of the neighboring street, recalled hearing a loud commotion emanating from Maggie's house at around 9:30 p.m. He had been outside, shoveling the snow that had accumulated during the day, when he heard what sounded like a heated argument followed by a series of thuds. Detective Bledsoe immediately recognized the significance of Mr. Johnson's account. The freezing temperatures that night had caused the freshly fallen snow to preserve the footprints left behind by anyone who had been near the crime scene. The detective and his team rushed to Maggie's house, carefully combing through the snow-covered ground for any signs of footprints. Their efforts paid off when they discovered a set of distinct footprints leading away from Maggie's house and towards the nearby park. The footprints were carefully measured and documented, revealing the precise stride length and shoe size of the individual responsible for Maggie's murder. The police compared these footprints to the shoe sizes of the prime suspects, Linda Bernardino Scalco and Karen Evans. The results were shocking. While Linda's shoe size did not match the footprints, Karen's shoe size was an exact match. This revelation sent shock waves through the investigation team, raising questions about Karen's potential involvement in the crime. With this crucial evidence in hand, the detectives intensified their interrogation of Karen, scrutinizing her every word and reaction. The pressure mounted as Karen's initial calmness gave way to moments of unease and anxiety. The investigation was now on a knife's edge, with the truth hanging precariously in the balance. In the ongoing investigation into the murder of Maggie Lewin, a new suspect emerged: Dr. Susan Chang, a 42-year-old dentist and the newest member of the Women's Book Club. Dr. Chung, known for her aloof demeanor and mysterious past, had become a person of interest in this chilling case. Dr. Chung's personal life was shrouded in secrecy, with little known about her background or motivations. However, the police uncovered some intriguing details that may shed light on her possible involvement in this heinous crime. One key piece of information that came to light is that Dr. Chung did not engage in the sexual activities that took place within the book club. While other members indulged in secret liaisons, Dr. Chung remained detached, keeping her personal life tightly guarded. Another intriguing aspect of this case was Dr. Chung's connection to a man named Dr. Dean Lewin. It had been revealed that Dr. Chung had broken the rules of the book club by engaging in sex with a man, none other than Dr. Lewin, a fellow dentist who happened to be Maggie Lewin's husband. This revelation raised eyebrows and sparked speculation about the extent of Dr. Chung's involvement in the unraveling of the book club's secrets. Had she told her lover about his wife's secret sex life? As the police interrogate Dr. Chung, they carefully observed her reactions and demeanor. Every word, every gesture was analyzed for any signs of guilt or involvement in this heinous crime. She admitted she had told Dean about his wife's dealings and the book club secret. Might this be the breakthrough the investigators desperately need? The shocking truth behind the murder of Maggie Lewin, a seemingly ordinary housewife from Elgin, Illinois had finally been unveiled. After a thorough investigation, it was revealed that the murderer was none other than Dr. Dean Lewin DDS, Maggie's own husband and a local dentist. The motive behind this heinous crime was a toxic combination of jealousy and desire. Driven by his intense longing for his wife and enraged by her alleged betrayal, Dr. Lewin confronted Maggie in the bathroom of their home on that fateful day in January of 1993. The details of the confrontation are chilling. In a fit of anger, Maggie admitted that yes, she had engaged in sexual relationships with the members of her women's book club, a secret gathering that turned out to be a lesbian swingers group. This revelation pushed Dr. Lewin over the edge, and he resorted to brutal violence, wielding a claw hammer to mercilessly beat his wife to death. The police meticulously pieced together the evidence, uncovering a web of deceit and hidden desires. The investigation revealed that Dr. Lewin had discovered his wife's secret through Dr. Susan Chung, a fellow dentist and the newest member of the book club. Dr. Chung had broken the rules of the club by engaging in a sexual relationship with Dr. Dean Miller, to whom she divulged the secrets of the book club and Maggie's infidelity. The arrest of Dr. Lewin sent shock waves through the community of Elgin as the once respected dentist was exposed as a cold-blooded murderer. The media frenzy that followed the revelation of this true crime case captivated Chicagoland, with newspapers and television stations covering every detail of the investigation and subsequent trial. The trial that followed Dr. Dean Lewin's arrest for the murder of his wife, Maggie Lewin, gripped the community of Elgin, Illinois in January of 1993. The courtroom was filled with anticipation as the prosecution led by District Attorney Geppetto Zempic, a proud Maltese immigrant, presented a compelling case against the accused. The defense, represented by Defense Attorney C. Alice Powell, sought to challenge the prosecution's narrative, delving into the complex emotions that fueled the murder. Throughout the trial, the courtroom was packed with spectators eager to witness the proceedings. Local news outlets, such as the Elgin Gazette and the Evening Star, provided updates on the trial, ensuring that the community remained informed. The trial became the talk of the town, with people discussing the case over cups of coffee at the popular local diner, Joe's Cafe. The prosecution painted a vivid picture of the crime, emphasizing the brutality of Maggie's murder and the devastating impact it had on her family. They presented evidence, including the claw hammer used as the murder weapon, which had been found hidden in Dr. Lewin's dental office. The defense, on the other hand, sought to humanize the accused, delving into his troubled past and the complex emotions that led to the tragic event. Maggie's family, including her children, Mocha and Tucker, sat through the trial, their grief palpable. They listened intently as witnesses took the stand, recounting the events leading up to Maggie's death. The emotional toll on the family was evident as they grappled with the details that emerged during the trial. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Dr. Dean Lewin DDS was found guilty of the murder of his wife. The courtroom erupted with mixed emotions as some felt that justice had been served, while others questioned whether the punishment was sufficient. The sentencing, which took place a few weeks later, saw Dr. Lewin receive a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The impact of the guilty verdict reverberated through the community, leaving a lasting impression on those involved. The Lewin family, along with Maggie's friends and neighbors, were forever changed by the events that unfolded during the trial. As the trial came to a close, the community of Elgin slowly began to heal. The book club, once a source of intrigue and scandal, disbanded, its members scattered. The town returned to its familiar routines, but the memory of Maggie's murder lingered, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. In the aftermath of the highly publicized trial that captivated the community, life slowly began to regain a sense of normalcy for Susan, Karen, and Linda, as well as the other individuals involved in this tragic case. Dr. Susan Cheong, a 42-year-old dentist and the newest member of the book club, found refuge in her work. She immersed herself in her dental practice, dedicating long hours to her patients while refining her skills. Unbeknownst to her patients, who continued to trust her with their dental care, she used the routine of her profession to gradually restore a sense of normalcy in her life. Karen Evans, Maggie's closest friend and neighbor, found comfort in the support of her community. Elgin, Illinois, a tight-knit and quiet suburban town, rallied around Karen, offering heartfelt condolences and support during her most difficult days. Linda Bernardino Scalco, the 61-year-old librarian and leader of the Women's Book Club, withdrew from the public eye. The scandal surrounding the book club's true nature had severely damaged Linda's reputation within the community. She resigned from her position at the local library and moved to a small town in Florida, hoping for a fresh start. The Lewin children, Tucker and Mocha, began therapy to address the trauma they had experienced. Their sessions focused on healing, forgiveness, and finding a path forward. Their resilience and strength in the wake of tragedy became an inspiration to those around them. As the years went by, Elgin, Illinois, a town forever marked by this tragedy, continued to grow and change. Its residents, determined to build a future that honored Maggie's memory, worked to heal and rebuild their community. The story begins in Hollywood, California, where Harry Major, a high school English teacher who had dedicated 28 years of his life to education, would find his life taking a surprising turn. At the age of 52, feeling disillusioned with the school environment, Harry made a drastic decision. Despite his successful career as an educator, he became frustrated with the increasing challenges at work, including the lack of discipline among students and the overwhelming responsibility of being asked to teach 6 classes at once. The situation led him to quit teaching in 1984 and venture into a completely new career path: real estate. Harry quickly found success in the world of real estate, flipping houses and accumulating wealth. Over the next 3 decades, he not only thrived in his new career but also embraced his passion for travel. By the time he reached the age of 82, he had visited more than 90 countries. His life was filled with accomplishments and new experiences, making him a well-traveled and financially successful individual. Yet, despite his success, Harry never married. His relationships and personal life were often shrouded in mystery, and there was one particular aspect of his character that remained a secret for many years: his peculiar attraction to male criminals. This unusual affection would eventually lead to Harry's tragic end. Though his love for criminals was known to a few, it was not something he openly discussed. His obsession with this dangerous attraction grew over the years, which would eventually draw him into situations that would prove fatal. In 2014, Harry Major's life came to an unexpected and tragic end. Living alone in his Hollywood home, he became involved with individuals who would ultimately bring him harm. Despite his outwardly successful life, the darkness surrounding his peculiar affections for criminals led to his untimely death. This case became a significant point of interest, as it was not just a tragedy involving a man with an unconventional passion, but also a stark reminder of how hidden desires can lead people down dangerous paths. The events surrounding Harry Major's life and death remain a chilling tale of how personal struggles, when left unchecked, can lead to irreversible consequences. As of 2014, he has been to more than 90 countries. On February 5, 2014, 82-year-old Harry lived alone in a small apartment near Sunset Boulevard. In his spare time, he often went to the elderly activity center to kill time, drink tea, and chat with his old friends. On this day, he met an old friend, Joseph, at the center, and he talked about what he's been experiencing recently. A few days ago, the 2 men who lived in his apartment were bickering every day, which was very annoying. Fortunately, they had gone, and the house was finally quiet again. According to Harry's neighbors, people often came to stay at Harry's house, but no one knows who these people were. But the neighbors have become more and more used to that. At about 7 p.m. on February 12, 2014, the landlord of Harry's rented apartment received a phone call. The caller said that they had made an appointment to have lunch with Harry today, but Harry didn't turn up and couldn't be reached. Worried that something had happened to Harry, they hoped that the landlord could go to the apartment to have a look. The landlord agreed and went to the apartment with an acquittal. They knocked for a while, but no one was answering, so the landlord used the spare key and felt unsettled as soon as he entered the house. The apartment was a mess, and Harry was a very clean person who would arrange the cans and bottles in his kitchen in a neat alphabetical order. No one was found in the living room and kitchen, so they went straight to the master bedroom and opened the door. They sensed the bad smell as soon as the doors been opened and saw Harry lying nearly naked in the bathroom of the room and wasn't breathing. The police blocked off the scene, and after inspection, they found that Harry had been dead for days. The door going into the apartment has not been forcibly opened. Blood stains and multiple blood prints that looked like shoe prints were found in the living room, kitchen, stairwell, and other places. There was a rope in the toilet, and preliminary autopsy results showed that the time of death was February 10th, and the cause of death was asphyxia. The murder weapon was most likely a belt. People who knew Harry said that he has never married and has always lived alone. Shortly before he was killed, he asked friends not to arrange any funerals and to simply throw his ashes into the ocean after he passed away. Harry was kind and generous to his friends and never made enemies with others. Though he supported atheism and gay rights in communities, these views shouldn't have warranted a murder. So who would do this to an 82-year-old man? Luz Briceño, who lived next door to Harry, told police that she saw him almost every day and last saw him on February 8th. But on February 10th, a strange thing happened, which she remembered very well. At 10 o'clock that morning, she was rushing for work and was washing up in a hurry in the bathroom when she heard a loud bang coming from Harry's next door. Her bathroom shares the same wall as Harry's apartment, and she thought Harry had slipped in the bathroom, so she was shouting through the wall, "Are you all right? What's going on?" No one answered for a long time, and out of worry she was going to go to Harry's to check on him, but no one answered the door. While she was contemplating calling the police, a voice that sounded like a female said that Harry was not at home and that he had gone to the store to buy something. Luz was still worried and asked again, "What happened? Is everything all right?" The person behind the door responded, "Fine. Everything is fine." And Luz was in a hurry to go to work, so he left without asking further. But thinking about it now, it was very weird. Joseph, an old friend of Harry's, said, "I saw two white men talking with him when I passed his apartment on February 1st, 4 days later. I met Harry at the activity center, and he told me that the two men who lived with him were always fighting. But that day, Harry also said that they were all gone. Harry was rich and wasn't capable of defending himself, so it isn't entirely impossible that people staying at the apartment had the idea to murder for money." Investigators found a phone with the contact name Scott Porter on it, but strangely, all the friends around him said they didn't know the man. Just when the investigation was in limbo, Harry's best friend Dale Rouse discovered a secret about Harry, and the truth has since been revealed. Harry had no relatives, and he entrusted all his possessions to his friend Dale, who was sorting out Harry's belongings. He accidentally found a pile of letters and some photos in his cabinet. These letters have one thing in common: they are all correspondences from prisoners in various prisons in the United States. Harry has been looking for male pen pals in prisons for decades, and most of the people he kept up correspondence with were serious criminals. He only became long-term pen pals with male prisoners who he had good conversations with. But this relationship is not innocent, as they were affectionate, flirtatious, and mostly sexual. The pictures in the letter were all of naked men. Even as the best and most trusted friend, Dale is not aware of this situation. Police found a letter signed by Scott Porter from Marcy Prison in New York in the pile of letters. The investigators quickly got in touch with the prison and learned that the man named Scott has the real name of Scott Kratlian. He dropped out of high school and has been on the street since. In 1992, he was arrested for burglary in Orange County, New York, and in the same year, he was sentenced to 25 years for murder. During his time in prison, he became a pen pal with Harry because of a soap called General Hospital, which lasted for more than 10 years. On November 26, 2013, 46-year-old Scott was released on parole. Before he was released, Harry had repeatedly said in letters that he wanted Scott to come to Los Angeles and live with him, and he said he was willing to give a sum of money for him to travel. In fact, whenever Harry learned that a pen pal would be released from prison, he would contact them in advance and offer a sum of money or the fare to his home on the condition that they would have sex with him. Many prisoners would choose to live in his home for a period of time after they are released from prison, because many of them are felons who have been in prison for decades. When they've just been released from prison, they are already quite old and may not adapt to society very well, or they have nowhere to go. Facing these challenges, a lot of them were willing to exchange sex for some money. Even though some of the prisoners were not gay, the police initially suspected that Harry had been killed by taking the felons who had just been released from prison to his home again and again, not only providing food and accommodation, but giving them pocket money so generously, which may have triggered the greed of some of them. Neighbor, Rouse, also said that Harry often had some strange visitors who looked like criminals. One of them often came in the middle of the night, and he was drunk every time. This surveillance video shows two white men in the parking lot downstairs of the apartment just a few days before the crime, which were the two men Joseph saw. One of them was Scott, and the other is James DeRocco. James was easier to find, as he was taken into custody after leaving Nevada in violation of his parole. James, 54, served 17 years in a Nevada prison for robbing a store. During his imprisonment, he saw an advertisement from Harry to find a same-sex pen pal, and they kept correspondence for more than 10 years. The first time he talked to Harry after he was released from prison was in 2009. James said, "Harry was very generous to me. He would tell every prisoner who came to his house that if he wanted food and shelter, he had to have sex with him. Harry also did what he could to help those who have been in prison like me. For example, he wanted Scott to go to college and was even willing to pay for it." When the police officer asked James if he knew where Scott was, James said angrily, "In January 2014, I came to Harry's apartment in Hollywood to stay for a while. At the end of the month, Scott, who had just come out of prison, also came, and Scott and I really couldn't get along. Scott was at Harry's when I left, and I don't know where he went after that." James went on to say, "We often argued about really trivial things, and Scott always said that the sound of me playing poker with Harry affected his sleep, and that I liked to raid the fridge and keep him hungry. But he played poker with Harry a lot more than I did. Not only did he borrow money from Harry, he also stole from him. We had a big fight about it, and he said I was spying on him. I was so angry that I called him a fat gay, and he grabbed me by the neck and put me against the wall, and he shouted and threatened me, saying that he was a murderer. Don't I know that he can kill me? Every night after this, I would sleep with a chair at the door in case Scott came in the middle of the night to retaliate. Early in the morning of February 5th, I asked Harry to drive me to the station so I could go home. When I left, I repeatedly told Harry that Scott was dangerous and to be careful of him. But at that time, Harry just replied lightly, saying I didn't need to worry about that. Back in Nevada, Harry and I were calling almost everyone, but he stopped responding 3 days later. It was verified that James never returned to Hollywood after leaving Harry, so his suspicion was ruled out. Scott, who left New York City in violation of his parole, is still missing, and the police have listed him as an important suspect. The Los Angeles Police Department and the FBI formed a task force to track Scott's whereabouts. The police found that after Harry's murder, his credit card had been used many times. The police soon found the person who stole the credit card, and the person was Scott. According to Harry's friends, Harry was really smart, and although he was rich, he lived frugally and planned well financially. No matter how generous he was, there was no way that he would give away his credit card for Scott to use frivolously. On February 18, 2014, 8 days after Harry was killed, Scott was arrested by the task force at a mental hospital north of Los Angeles. He said during trial that around the end of January, he arrived in Los Angeles at Harry's invitation and was really excited that he would finally meet his pen pal of more than a decade in real life. But the reality was very different from what he expected. He found that Harry was completely different from what he had imagined. Although Harry had never said his age, he always thought that he should be around 60 years old. But he was 82 years old, more than 30 years older than Scott. There was also another man living in Harry's home, and it turned out that he was not the one for Harry. The huge gap between his expectations and reality left him feeling resentful. Scott also said he was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder while in prison. This condition is classified by the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders as a personality disorder and requires the patient to take medication regularly. This time in Los Angeles, he had not taken medicine for several days, and he was worried that he would get sick. So after James left, he went to the mental hospital by car and took the initiative to tell the doctor about his illness. After 2 days in the hospital, he returned to Harry's. On February 9th, he said he wanted to talk about him choking James and stealing money, but they ended up having a big argument. The next day, around 11 a.m. on February 10th, he left Harry's house with his luggage, and Harry gave him a bit of money. The CCTV footage downstairs also showed that Scott did carry a rucksack and leave the apartment at about the same time that day. Scott went on to say that he had been staying in Los Angeles because he wanted to make more money and go back to New York, but he was worried that the medicine prescribed by the hospital would not work and that he would fall ill anytime, so he lived in a mental hospital again. However, many people believe that Scott staying in a mental hospital was a trick to avoid the police after committing the crime. This was probably influenced by the movies and TV shows of that period. At that time, there would be clips in movies and shows showing that even if there were patients suspected of committing crimes, the hospital would not disclose any information about the identity of the patient to the police. So it gave the impression that institutions like mental hospitals are good places for criminals to hide. Soon enough, it was found that Scott's story had flaws. After his arrest, the police found that his right forearm was bruised by a rope, and blood extracted from the toe of the tennis shoes he was wearing was tested to be consistent with Harry's DNA. And the sole pattern is consistent with the footprints left at the scene. When the police showed him footage of him using Harry's credit card, he admitted using Harry's credit card, but did not admit to killing Harry. But even with the inconsistent evidence, Scott was still accused of murdering 82-year-old Harry. The trial was deemed to be challenging without direct evidence, and the final result came after several rounds of court debates. Scott changed his testimony at the trial, saying that Harry questioned him about the money after James left on February 5th and asked him to move out immediately, so he left on bad terms. On February 10th, he wanted to borrow some money from Harry. At that time, something unpleasant happened at Harry's, and they had a fight that had Harry's nose bleeding, and that's probably where the blood on his shoes came from. However, Harry was alive and well when he left his home. Scott's lawyer repeatedly emphasized that no one had witnessed his client commit murder on the day of the victim's death, and the blood found on his shoes didn't conclusively prove that he was the killer. The prosecutor, on the other hand, presented evidence that on the day of the crime, the next-door neighbor, Luce, heard a loud noise and went to check on Harry. Upon knocking, she heard a female voice behind the door saying that Harry wasn't home and had gone to the store. However, surveillance footage from around the apartment revealed that Harry never left the house that day, and no one had seen him since. The prosecutor argued that the loud noise must have been made by the murderer. It was Scott who was using a female voice at the time. James had once noted that Scott often had a feminine way of speaking, and with a slight change in his tone, he could easily pass for a woman. After Harry was killed, Scott used Harry's credit card and got into an altercation with a cashier at a 7-Eleven. A video from the incident showed Scott's voice was notably high-pitched during the argument, further suggesting the possibility that it could have been mistaken for an angry woman's voice. The prosecutor also drew comparisons between the murder of Harry and a similar crime Scott had committed in 1992. Both cases shared striking similarities in victim characteristics and the manner of execution. In both instances, the victims were around 40 years older than Scott, killed in the bathroom, tied up before being murdered, nearly naked, and strangled with belts. This pattern pointed to a significant connection between the two cases. The prosecutor argued that the heated argument between Scott and Harry that day likely pushed Scott to murder Harry in the same manner he had committed a similar crime years earlier. It was clear, according to the prosecutor, that only Scott could have committed two such similar crimes. On November 18, 2015, 21 months after the crime, the jury delivered its verdict. Scott was guilty of the murder of 82-year-old Harry, and he was sentenced to 56 years in prison. Despite Scott's cries of injustice, he was doomed to spend the remainder of his life behind bars, convicted for a second time. Jennifer Lee Trelegy, a 34-year-old resident of Mesa, Arizona, was a woman driven by ambition and a deep sense of responsibility. In July 2008, her life seemed to be progressing smoothly, both professionally and personally. She had risen to the position of chief telemarketer at Credit Cards 4 Kids, a company dedicated to helping children build a secure financial future. Jennifer's hard work and dedication earned her the respect of her colleagues, and she quickly became a valued member of the organization. Outside of work, Jennifer was equally committed to making a difference. She volunteered regularly at the local homeless shelter, organizing food drives, fundraising events, and offering support to those in need. Her compassion for others made her a beloved figure in the Mesa community. Her selflessness was even recognized by the Mesa Tribune, which ran a feature on her charitable efforts and contributions to local causes. Jennifer's positive nature extended beyond her professional and volunteer work. She had a close-knit circle of family and friends, and she cherished every moment spent with them. Jennifer made it a priority to create lasting memories, fostering strong, meaningful relationships with those she loved. However, despite her outwardly perfect life, an unexpected turn of events would soon shatter Jennifer's sense of security. Her curiosity was piqued when she began to notice strange behavior from her husband, including his secretive involvement with a mysterious gym group. Though Jennifer trusted her husband, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Driven by suspicion, she decided to investigate further. Little did she know, this decision would lead her into a web of danger and intrigue that would change her life forever. As we delve deeper into this case, we will explore the details surrounding Jennifer's life, her aspirations, and the events that transpired in the blisteringly hot Arizona summer of 2008. Stay tuned for the shocking revelations that lie ahead. On a scorching summer day in July 2008, tragedy struck the peaceful suburban neighborhood of Mesa, Arizona. Jennifer Lee Trilogy, a 34-year-old woman known for her dedication and warm-hearted nature, met a gruesome and untimely end within the walls of her own home. The details of this heinous crime sent shock waves through the community, leaving residents fearful and on edge. It was Jennifer's close friend, Stacy Brewer Gayton, who made the horrifying discovery. As she entered Jennifer's home that day, expecting to find her vibrant and full of life, she was instead met with a scene of unimaginable horror. Jennifer lay lifeless on the floor, her body bearing the brutal marks of over 30 stab wounds inflicted with a steak knife. The sheer violence and cruelty of the act sent shivers down Stacy's spine, leaving her overwhelmed with shock and disbelief. The authorities were immediately contacted, and a sense of urgency filled the air. As news of Jennifer's tragic fate spread, the community rallied together in grief and solidarity. Vigils were held and heartfelt tributes poured in from friends, family, and even strangers who had been touched by Jennifer's kindness. The media, always hungry for sensational stories, descended upon Mesa, eager to uncover every detail and bring the truth to light. As the days turned into weeks, the weight of the unsolved crime hung heavy over the neighborhood. Fear and suspicion lingered in the air, casting a shadow over once trusting relationships. The community yearned for closure, for justice to be served, and for the memory of Jennifer Lee Trilogy to be honored. The authorities wasted no time in responding to the distressing call made by Stacy Brewer Gayton that came in on that fateful July day in 2008. A team of dedicated police officers swiftly arrived at the scene, ready to unravel the mystery surrounding Jennifer Lee Trilogy's brutal murder. Led by Detective Oliver S.A.E. Kwan, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for his tenacity and attention to detail, the police meticulously combed through every inch of the crime scene. The once tranquil home in the suburban neighborhood of Mesa, Arizona now bore the chilling marks of a heinous crime. As Detective Kwan surveyed the scene, his eyes were immediately drawn to the bloodstains that marred the once pristine surroundings. The crimson trails seemed to tell a haunting story of the violence that had unfolded within her house. The once pristine surroundings were now stained with Jennifer's blood, a grim reminder of the brutal act that had taken place. The murder weapon, a steak knife from the kitchen, lay discarded nearby, serving as a chilling testament to the violence inflicted upon her. Detective Thompson and his team employed a variety of tools and methods to gather evidence. They carefully collected fingerprints from various surfaces, dusted for DNA, and meticulously photographed the scene from every angle. The detectives also interviewed neighbors, hoping to gather any information that could lead them to the perpetrator. As the investigation progressed, the media began to take notice. Local news outlets, such as the Mesa Tribune and Channel 12 News, reported on the shocking murder that had rocked the community. The police delved into Jennifer's personal life, discovering that Jennifer had recently become suspicious of her husband's gym group, a tight-knit community known as Fit Life Warriors. The group, led by charismatic lifestyle guru Bert Hensley-Brecht, had gained a reputation for their intense workouts and exclusive membership. As the summer of 2008 unfolded, the residents of Mesa anxiously awaited justice for Jennifer Lee Trelegy. The pressure mounted on the police from people from all walks of life to solve the crime and bring closure to Jennifer's grieving loved ones. Devin Trelegy, a 38-year-old man with a charming personality, found himself at the center of a chilling crime that left a quiet suburban neighborhood in Mesa, Arizona, in shock. As the investigation into the murder of his wife, Jennifer Lee Trelegy, unfolded, a dark secret began to emerge, threatening to unravel the lives of those involved. The police, determined to uncover the truth, focused their attention on Devin as the prime suspect. With his charismatic demeanor and ability to charm those around him, he had managed to maintain a facade of love and affection. However, beneath this seemingly loving exterior, a sinister side lay hidden. During the intense interrogation, Devin's emotions fluctuated between anger and an unsettling calmness. The detectives, armed with their questions and a desire for justice, probed into his possible motives. They delved into his personal life, searching for any signs of discontent or animosity within the marriage. As the investigation progressed, the police pieced together the events leading up to that fateful day in July 2008. They discovered that Jennifer had recently uncovered a secret about her husband's gym group, a group that Devin was deeply involved in. Whispers of illegal activities and connections to organized crime began to circulate within the investigation. The authorities meticulously combed through the evidence, leaving no stone unturned. They analyzed phone records, financial transactions, and witness statements, hoping to find a solid link to the crime. The murder weapon, a steak knife from the kitchen, was carefully examined for fingerprints and DNA, providing crucial clues that would help unravel the truth. The weight of the investigation bore down on Devin, his every move scrutinized by both the police and the public. The once charming man now faced a storm of suspicion and doubt. Would the evidence be enough to bring justice for Jennifer's untimely demise? Stacy Brewer-Guyton, a 36-year-old woman from Mesa, Arizona, found herself under the watchful eye of the authorities as a potential suspect in the tragic murder of her close friend, Jennifer Lee Trelegy. Stacy, known for her outgoing personality and love for adventure, was an avid gym goer and enjoyed exploring the great outdoors of Arizona. In July of 2008, when the murder took place, Stacy's life took an unexpected turn as she became entangled in a web of suspicion and scrutiny. As a Jungian dream analyst, Stacy prided herself on her ability to interpret dreams and uncover hidden meanings. She often shared her insights with friends and clients, helping them navigate the complexities of their subconscious minds. She also relied heavily on her spirit animal, an ostrich named Angela Reese Crosswind. But behind her fanciful and carefree facade, jealousy brewed within her towards Jennifer, who seemed to have it all: a successful career, a loving husband, and a seemingly perfect life. The police interrogated Stacy relentlessly, leaving no stone unturned in their pursuit of the truth. They probed into her possible motives, scrutinizing her every word and reaction. The intensity of the investigation took a toll on Stacy, evoking a range of emotions from anger to a desperate calmness. During the interrogation, Stacy's mind raced with memories of her friendship with Jennifer. They had shared countless moments together, from their early morning workouts at the local gym to exploring the beautiful landscapes of Arizona. Stacy couldn't help but feel a pang of envy whenever Jennifer's achievements were celebrated. As if her own accomplishments paled in comparison, Stacy's life was turned upside down as she became the subject of public scrutiny. Her every move was dissected and analyzed by armchair detectives and gossip-hungry journalists. The weight of suspicion bore down on her, threatening to crush her spirit and tarnish her reputation. In a shocking turn of events, the investigation into the tragic murder of Jennifer Lee Trelegy took an unexpected twist. The once respected workplace of Jennifer, Credit Cards for Kids, was revealed to be a deceitful company operating as a pyramid scheme, preying on innocent and vulnerable children. This revelation added a new layer of intrigue and possible motive to the already twisted tale of murder and deceit. Credit Cards for Kids, a seemingly noble organization purported to provide financial education for children. However, behind the facade of innocence, it was discovered that the company engaged in predatory practices, enticing children to obtain credit cards with exorbitant interest rates. These poor and vulnerable children were then subjected to relentless harassment as they struggled to pay off the staggering 45% interest rate imposed by the company. The revelation of this sinister scheme sent shock waves through the community as parents and authorities grappled with the realization that such an exploitative operation had been operating right under their noses. The public demanded justice for the innocent victims ensnared in this web of deceit. As the investigation into Jennifer Lee Trilogy's murder deepened, detectives began to explore the possible connection between her untimely demise and the fraudulent activities of Credit Cards for Kids. The police meticulously examined financial records, seeking any potential links between Jennifer and the company's downfall. They interviewed former employees, desperate to uncover any clues that could shed light on the motive behind her brutal slaying. Investigators speculated that Jennifer, being a dedicated and ambitious woman, may have stumbled upon the dark secrets of Credit Cards for Kids. Perhaps she had uncovered evidence of the company's illegal activities, putting her in grave danger. This theory raised questions about who stood to benefit from silencing her permanently. As the investigation continued, the police intensified their efforts to dismantle the fraudulent empire of Credit Cards for Kids. They collaborated with federal agencies, including the Federal Trade Commission and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, to bring the perpetrators to justice and protect the innocent victims ensnared in this heartless scheme. As the investigation into Jennifer Lee Trilogy's tragic murder unfolded, another key figure emerged: Martin O'Hurley, her closest friend and co-worker at Credit Cards for Kids. At just 24 years old, Martin was known for his quick thinking and unwavering loyalty towards Jennifer. However, beneath his friendly demeanor, a troubled past lurked, threatening to expose a side of him that no one could have anticipated. On the surface, Martin appeared to be an ordinary young man, dedicated to his work and always ready with a joke to lighten the mood. But as the police delved deeper into his life, they discovered a series of unsettling incidents that hinted at a darker side. Born and raised in Mesa, Arizona, Martin grew up in a modest neighborhood surrounded by the desert landscape that defined the region. His childhood was marked by hardship as his parents struggled to make ends meet. Despite the challenges, Martin excelled academically, earning a scholarship to attend Mesa High School. It was during his time at Mesa High that Martin's troubles began to surface. He fell in with a group of rebellious classmates, known locally as the Desert Punks. This tight-knit crew, notorious for their wild parties and reckless behavior, quickly became Martin's new social circle. Their influence led him down a path of minor criminal activity, including vandalism and petty theft. As the questioning intensified, it was revealed that Martin had been moonlighting as a prostitute, offering his services to male clients in the Mesa area. This revelation sent shock waves through the investigation, painting a picture of a man leading a double life. One of Martin's frequent customers turned out to be none other than Devin Trilogy, Jennifer's husband. The police were astounded by this connection as it added another layer of complexity to the already twisted tale of murder and deceit. It raised questions about the dynamics between Martin, Jennifer, and Devin, and whether this illicit relationship played a role in Jennifer's untimely demise. The truth finally emerged, revealing Devin Trilogy as the cold-blooded murderer. Devin, age 38, had been leading a double life, hiding his involvement with a secret gym group called Fit Life Warriors. This group, unbeknownst to the community, was exclusively for men and served as a male-only brothel/gay swingers club that would procure handsome male lovers for their members. This revelation shed new light on Devin's motive for the murder and exposed the dark underbelly of the seemingly idyllic suburban community in Mesa, Arizona. The police, through diligent investigation, pieced together the evidence that linked Devin to Fit Life Warriors. They uncovered explicit messages exchanged between Devin and other members of the group, revealing a web of deceit and betrayal. It became apparent that Devin's involvement with Fit Life Warriors had become a source of conflict within his marriage to Jennifer. The discovery of Devon's secret life and his connection to Fit Life warriors sent shockwaves through the community. Residents were left questioning the true nature of the seemingly perfect lives that surrounded them. As the police delved deeper into the connection between Devon and Fit Life warriors, they uncovered a network of notable individuals who were part of this secret club. Interviews with club members revealed a tight-knit sex community that operated under a code of secrecy. The police worked tirelessly to gather information from these individuals, hoping to unravel the full extent of Devon's involvement and the motive behind Jennifer's murder. The arrest of Devon Trilogy sent shock waves through the community as the reality of a heinous crime committed in their midst became all too real. The community, still reeling from the revelations surrounding Fit Life warriors, came together to support Jennifer's family and honor her memory. The impact of this tragic event would forever leave its mark on Mesa, Arizona, serving as a reminder that darkness can lurk behind even the most seemingly idyllic facades. The trial that followed Jennifer Lee Trilogy's tragic murder in July 2008 brought the community together as they sought justice for the beloved woman whose life was brutally cut short. The courtroom was filled with tension and raw emotions as the prosecution and defense presented their cases, each vying to sway the jury's decision. The prosecution, led by determined prosecutor Angela Cost, known for her track record of successful convictions, meticulously laid out the evidence against the prime suspect, Devon Trilogy. They presented the jury with a compelling argument, weaving together a narrative that painted Devon as a man driven by secrets and betrayal. The prosecution called upon witnesses who testified to Devon's volatile temper and his connection to the murder weapon, a steak knife found in the Trilogy household. The defense, represented by Cole Robbie, a skilled attorney renowned for his ability to cast doubt on the prosecution's claims, sought to challenge the evidence presented. They questioned the reliability of the witnesses, highlighting inconsistencies in their testimonies. The defense argued that there was no concrete proof linking Devon to the crime and urged the jury to consider alternative theories. Throughout the trial, Jennifer's grieving family sat in the courtroom, their eyes fixed on the proceedings. They clung to the hope that justice would be served for their beloved daughter, sister, and friend. Friends and supporters of Jennifer filled the gallery, their presence a testament to the impact she had on their lives. As the trial progressed, the media frenzy surrounding the case intensified. Local newspapers, such as the Mesa Tribune, dedicated coverage to the trial, providing daily updates on the proceedings. Television news stations, including Channel 8 News, broadcasted reports from outside the courthouse, capturing the public's attention. After days of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. The courtroom fell silent as the jury foreperson stood and announced that Devon Trilogy was found guilty of first-degree murder. The room erupted with a mix of relief and sorrow. As Jennifer's family and friends processed the weight of the decision, Devon was subsequently sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentencing brought a sense of closure for Jennifer's loved ones, knowing that the person responsible for her untimely death would be held accountable. The impact of the verdict reverberated through the community, forever altering the lives of those involved. Jennifer's memory lives on, not only in the hearts of her family and friends, but also in the collective consciousness of Mesa, Arizona. In the aftermath of the trial, the lives of those impacted by Jennifer's death underwent significant changes. Martin O'Hurley, Jennifer's best friend and co-worker, found comfort in the unwavering support of his loved ones. Driven by the determination to honor Jennifer's memory, Martin enrolled in a local community college with a focus on criminal justice. Inspired by the dedication of the detectives who had worked tirelessly on Jennifer's case, he dreamed of becoming a detective himself one day, hoping to make a difference in the lives of others. Jennifer's close friend, Stacy Brewer Gayton, turned to nature as a means of healing. Seeking solace and clarity, she embarked on a solo hiking trip through the majestic landscapes of Sedona, Arizona. The stunning red rock formations and the peaceful desert environment provided a much-needed sense of tranquility. During her journey, Stacy began sharing her reflections and experiences on her blog, Wandering Spirit. Through her writing, she connected with a growing online community that offered support and understanding during her healing process. Meanwhile, Devon Trilogy, the cold-blooded murderer, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The trial had exposed the sinister side of the otherwise peaceful suburban town, leaving a lasting mark on its residents. While the media frenzy around the case eventually subsided, the emotional scars endured. As time passed, the wounds of those affected began to heal, but the memory of Jennifer and the tragic events surrounding her untimely death remained embedded in the collective consciousness of the community. The impact of the case had irrevocably changed the lives of those involved, serving as a poignant reminder of life's fragility and the need for justice to prevail. Jennifer Gerardo, formerly known as Jennifer Cox, was born on December 19, 1970, in Fort Wayne, Indiana. She grew up there and graduated from Bishop Lewis High School, where she excelled in advanced courses. She then studied communication at Indiana University, Purdue University in Indianapolis, and was involved in the college's theater arts and performances program. Jennifer continued her education at Butler University, earning a BA in communication and theater arts. She worked in various marketing positions for different companies in Indiana, including in Carmel and Indianapolis. For several years, she was the marketing manager at Cercier Instrumentation. Jennifer Cox and Mark Gerardo first met as teenagers in Fort Wayne, Indiana, in the summer of 1986. Jennifer worked at Taco Bell, and her stunning blue eyes and big smile immediately drew Mark's attention. He felt speechless and a bit nervous around her. It wasn't until 4 years later that their romance started to blossom. They reconnected when Mark found out Jennifer was working at a nearby mall. He visited her often, and one day Jennifer asked him outright when he was going to take her out. Mark confessed that he was shy, which she appreciated. Jennifer's confidence and straightforwardness were a stark contrast to Mark's reserved nature. Melissa Murphy, Jennifer's childhood friend, remembered how excited Jennifer was when she first met Mark, describing him as the one. Jennifer was ready to do anything for him. On October 23, 1993, Mark and Jennifer got married. Mark was 25 and Jennifer was 23 at the time. Their relationship had begun in their youth and carried them into a loving marriage. Mark talked about how happy he and his partner Jennifer were, and how he couldn't picture his life without her. Like any relationship, they went through tough times in their marriage. Mark said their arguments could be intense, and Jennifer usually won because she always had the final say. One of Mark's high school friends, Mike Hartman, said he didn't know all the details of their relationship, but he knew their emotions ran high. The couple had a strong marriage, but the 2008 financial crisis hit them hard. Money had always been a source of stress, causing many arguments. Mark later said that the crisis changed everything for them. In November 2011, they both moved to Greenville, South Carolina, where they found new jobs in marketing. With the new environment and frequent exploration of the state's beautiful mountains and beaches, Mark said they experienced a little bit of restoration for their marriage, which had brought them much closer than before. Everything was going well for the next few years until 2017, when their renewed life in South Carolina came to a halt. Jennifer faced job layoffs and struggled to secure a new position. She lost confidence in herself and became much less strong than the woman she had once been. Around this time, the couple decided once again that it was time to search for new opportunities and a new beginning elsewhere. Finally, the couple decided that Delaware would be their new home, and immediately, Mark began his search for a job opportunity. He saw that the University of Delaware was hiring a creative director in its marketing department. If he is successful, he will be the supervisor. He sent an email applying for the role and received an instant message back from a woman, 15 years his junior, who would be his new boss, offering him an interview. His concerns that a woman 15 years, his junior, would be managing him subsided almost immediately. This marked the beginning of Mark Gerardo's first encounter with Meredith Chapman. Meredith Chapman was a Pennsylvania native and 33 years old at the time. She was a graduate of the University of Delaware with a bachelor's degree in communication and a master's degree in education. Meredith was also married to a man named Luke, a former New York City councilman. The couple had married in 2009 and lived in Fairfield Crest, Delaware with their dog, Indy. When Mark attended his interview, He found that he was immediately attracted to Meredith, not only to her beauty, but also to her pure brilliance. He said, "When I sat across the desk from her within 5 minutes, I didn't say it out loud, but I said, I've got to work for this person." He further said she was so articulate, energetic, and passionate about the job, and she was accomplished at her age to be in the position she was in. "I was dumbfounded," he added. It appeared that Meredith was impressed with Mark because she immediately offered him the job, which Mark gratefully accepted. He moved to Wilmington, Delaware in November 2017, while his wife stayed behind in South Carolina temporarily to lease their home. Mark was excited not only because of the move north, but also because of the growth in his career, not knowing that this would be the beginning of the end of his marriage with Jenna Iyer. Mark lived alone in Delaware for the first 45 days, while his wife stayed behind to arrange the rental of their home. During that time, Mark said he got to know Meredith well and stated that the two had a lot in common. One day, she asked him out for a drink. Remembering the events of the night, Mark said it was easy to talk to Meredith. Before they went home, he spoke to her about his marriage to Jenna, even though it wasn't necessarily in a negative way. He also told Meredith about losing his parents and his brother. Mark didn't know what was transpiring, stating, "I really didn't know what was happening." He went on to say, "I knew it felt amazing to be around Meredith, and I was confused by the feelings I was having. To be honest, until it became a little bit more forward with a dinner that we had. Felt more like a date." When he was with Meredith, Mark said the issues with his marriage also came into focus. It was during this time that Mark started comparing Meredith to his wife, stating how Meredith began to tell him that he was good at what he did, and how wonderful a man he was, something he said he had never heard from his wife's lips. Mark was hopelessly in love, stating, "That just made an impression on me. Here's this woman, whom I think is amazing, saying that she thinks I'm a wonderful man." 1 month after meeting Meredith, Mark said that the two kissed for the first time. He further said that while the energy was there, he immediately felt awful for betraying his wife, and told Meredith that whatever was about to happen couldn't be because he cared for his wife. Nonetheless, he soon realized that he also couldn't give up on the feelings he was developing for Meredith, who, he said, had told him she was 9 years into an unhappy marriage herself. Mark said, "I felt enthralled. It was such a connection. To shut it down just didn't feel right. I had to at least find out what it was that drew us together." Before Jen Eyre had joined her husband in Delaware, her husband and Meredith had already expressed their love for each other, with Mark saying, "It felt right to tell Meredith that I loved her, and it was a very powerful feeling." In December 2017, Jen Eyre moved north, and Mark said she could sense he was distant. It wasn't long before she confronted him about her feeling that there could be another woman. Mark said, "She finally asked me, 'What is up with you? You're acting differently.'" He continued, "She said specifically, 'It's Meredith, isn't it?'" This was after Mark had mentioned Meredith several times when speaking about his new job. Although her husband denied the affair at first, Jenna would not let it go. She continued to question his relationship with Meredith, aware that there was something between the two. Jenna began to pay attention to her husband, making sure she knew what he was up to at any given time. He further mentioned that Jenna Iyer mysteriously knew things about him and Meredith that he couldn't understand how she knew. On February 14, 2008, Valentine's Day, Jenna Iyer finally got the proof she had been looking for. However, Mark's admission of an affair with Meredith came at a cost to Jen Eyre, who admitted to him that she had hired a company to gain access to his phone, permitting her to read his text messages and view his photos and records of calls he had exchanged with Meredith. Mark admitted the truth to Jenna. He had indeed fallen for Meredith because he knew he could not keep up with the lie any longer. Heartbroken and refusing to give up on her husband, Jenna asked Mark to attend marriage counseling, which he agreed to attend. On the day of their second session, Mark said he was putting on his jacket when he felt something bulging in the lining of his coat. At first, he thought it was an anti-theft device, but upon opening the jacket, he found a recording device. It was recording him at that exact moment with its lights already flashing. At that particular time, Mark was very furious and confronted his wife. In response, Jenna Iyer told him she wanted to understand the degree to which Meredith and he were involved in a relationship. She was determined that there was a plan between Meredith and him, and she was trying to listen to what that plan was. From then on, the relationship between Mark and Jen Eyre would fall apart at an accelerated rate. Finally, Mark told Jen Eyre that he planned on filing for divorce in May of 2018, after he had met Delaware residency requirements and could move out of their shared house. Things were going well during this time, especially for Meredith Chapman, who accepted a new job offer as the assistant vice president at Villanova University in Pennsylvania and relocated to Radnor Township, Pennsylvania, a part of the Mainline region. Meredith and her husband were getting divorced as well, so that she could continue to pursue her new relationship with Mark, and they could eventually be together. As Meredith and Mark's relationship grew, Jen Eyre began to consult with divorce coach Sheila Brennan, who observed that Jen Eyre harbored a significant amount of bitterness and anger due to her rejection and replacement by a younger woman. Having recently relocated to the north and yet to secure a new job after losing her previous one, Jen Eyre harbored numerous fears of financial instability. Things seemed to go from bad to worse for Jen Eyre, and all of this had destroyed her mental health. Mark recommended that she see a psychiatrist and also seek support from family and friends, as she had even threatened to jump out of the window. Jen Eyre took the advice and seemed to accept the forthcoming divorce. Jen Eyre approached her husband one day with a list of requests for the weeks leading up to his officially moving out. Mark said he believed that they had gotten through the worst things, but little did he know that this was far from the truth, and that the worst was yet to come. Among the items on her list were going on hikes, having dinner, and generally spending some time together. Mark agreed to play along with Jen Eyre's requests, stating it was odd, "But I'm trying to land this thing so she is in a good place. If this is what she needed, then I was going to do that." Mark said his wife was acting normally for the most part, although she would occasionally break down and cry over the next few weeks. Jen Eyre also began posting on the neighborhood app, Nextdoor, asking for recommendations for an excellent marriage counselor for a couple on the brink of divorce. She wrote, "We will need someone who is very educated and experienced in dealing with couples issues, including infidelity, depression, traumatic experiences, child-parent dynamics, and accountability for actions." However, in secret, she had been planning revenge. Mark and Jen Eyre had scheduled a dinner meeting to discuss the divorce agreement on April 23, 2018. However, Jen Eyre sent a series of messages informing her husband, who was already at the restaurant, that she was running late. She then sent him another text, telling him to go home because she wouldn't make it. As Mark prepared to leave, he received a picture from Jen Eyre a few minutes later. She sent him a picture of trash with a condom in the middle, which made him believe she was searching through Meredith's trash can outside her home. He then received more text messages, one of which read, "You ruined my life." The next two messages that Jen Eyre sent Mark read, "I hope you never find happiness," and another read by Mark. Mark tried to text and call Meredith multiple times, fearing for her safety and afraid of what Jen Eyre might do to her. Unfortunately, all forms of communication went unanswered. He rushed to Meredith's house expecting to find a fight between Jen Eyre and Meredith. But when he arrived, he found something worse than he could ever have imagined. He found Meredith face down on her kitchen floor, with a pool of blood forming around her head. He also found his wife's body lying on the floor nearby. Mark stated, "It took 5 seconds, and I screamed in obscenity and ran to her." He continued, "I just said, 'Baby, oh baby, what have you done?'" Meredith had just posted on Instagram about her new position at Villanova University, expressing how excited she was. Later that evening, she returned home to her Radnor Township residence and went inside, unaware that Jen Eyre had broken in and was lying in wait. Neighbor Tim M.V. heard the noise and went to see what was happening. Mark told him to call 911. When Sergeant Christopher Four of the Radnor Township Police arrived, he described the scene as chaotic, with many officers on the scene. They placed Mark, who appeared distressed, in an ambulance and took him to the police station as a suspect. The police concluded that Jen Eyre had broken into Meredith's home, killed Meredith, and then taken her own life after questioning Mark and investigating the scene. The day after the incident, police received a tip about a woman in a trench coat, hat, sunglasses, and possible wig watching the house with binoculars. They also found car keys at the scene that matched a Cadillac Jen Eyre had rented. Mark was shocked to learn about the rented Cadillac, discovering most of the information from the police and news. She had rented the car 2 weeks before the incident and parked it near their apartment. Mark started digging deeper, reviewing his wife's financial records and computer files. He found that she had been living a double life. After Mark admitted to an affair around Valentine's Day, Jen Eyre opened secret bank accounts and credit cards, using them to buy surveillance equipment, lock-picking tools, hacking software, and DNA testing kits. Mark mentioned that she also bought and attached GPS tracking devices to their cars. According to Mark, Jen Eyre had over 400 images of private conversations he and Meredith had through text and Snapchat. She would access his phone at night while he was asleep, using his thumbprint to unlock it. Jen Eyre bought a gun 5 weeks before the tragic murder-suicide and practiced using it at a firing range. Her husband, Mark, discovered that she had been secretly recording him by hiding devices in his clothes and keeping detailed files of hundreds of hours of audio. The night Jen Eyre killed Meredith and herself, she emailed her family a letter explaining her motives. She had started writing the letter weeks before and described her actions as payback for what Mark had done to her. Dr. Robbie Ludwig, a psychotherapist, suggested that listening to the recordings might have fueled Jen Eyre's anger and sense of betrayal. She may have become dangerous when she lost hope and decided to end her own and Meredith's lives in an act of vengeance. During a TV interview, Dr. Ozark revealed Jen Eyre left a 15-page letter stating she would have killed Mark if he had walked in on the crime. Mark expressed regret for how he handled the breakup, believing he had broken Jen Eyre's heart and contributed to her actions. Despite the tragedy, he still loves her and wishes he could take it all back. Thanks for diving into another mystery with us. If you enjoyed unraveling the clues and chasing the truth, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. Your support helps us bring you more thrilling cases and deep dives into the unknown.